somebody tell me, like, why is it, because the whole educated lame argument, right? I've kind of did a small video on it, and I don't want to make this one too long, but what I do want to emphasize is that when it comes down to other groups, and I know this personally, I mean, some of the Arabs that I know, they are hard workers. They're like, yeah, I can't get with her unless I get my shit together. I have to finish school and get this doctorate's degree, or I'm working on becoming an engineer because I know how her parents are going to view me, just being a regular guy working at this fucking corner store. I know Asians who are the same way. A lot of Orientals I know. Some of them actually plan on going back to their homeland, which some of them have never even been before, but they want to choose their wife from there, but they want to make sure that they are completed with school and established before they do so, right? Um, that whole patriarchal factor when it comes down to it is just phenomenal how the groups work. But with us, it's, we've all talked about black men being removed out of the home and some of the things that they've been going through ever since: incarceration, lack of jobs, um, and it started to become the norm. Not necessarily for everybody, but the numbers are high, right? And if the numbers weren't high, we wouldn't have this conversation. Or if the numbers are waning a little bit now, then we'll look at the rest of the world and see how it is with us, and then maybe, just maybe, these discussions will stop. But being educated in other groups, other societies, is definitely cool. Um, in the black community, I just don't see it being like that. It just doesn't make any sense. Um, just had a conversation, right, with Smooth, and a few things did come up at the end of the video. We were talking about the Philippines, and we were talking about. He asked me, did the Filipinos out there consider themselves niggas? Because he always thought that that's how the rest of the Asian community viewed them. And I said, yeah. But even within the Philippines, there's social stigmas that are placed upon not just the color of your skin or the complexion of your skin, because they got white Filipinos out there who act like they shit don't stink towards the more browner, darker Filipinos, and this is everywhere you go. He made the comment that black people are the worst, and I mentioned, well, there's a large amount of colorism even in the Hispanic community, and he agreed. He said, well, you know what, Hispanics definitely come second. But it's there in the Asian community too. So I just wanted to point that out. And that can be a whole video on colorism right there. But we actually talked about, and I mentioned this in my ostracism video, where if you have a child, if you're Somalian, for instance, you're Somali and you have a child with, just say, a black man, you are ostracized. In some cases, they will move you to another area so that you won't tarnish their reputation. We don't do that. In the black community. I also had the conversation with him behind the scenes about, you know, he asked me, did I ever mention this to RBR? And I said no. He knew I was getting there, and he was going to cut me off. So, you got Asian communities who pride themselves on education. In the Philippines, there's this new president. He's been president now for, I want to say, about maybe a year and a half, going on 2 years. Roberto Torte, right? So I've known about him for a while because I know a woman who is from Davao, which is the country there. And not only do they pride themselves on education, they pride themselves on the lack of crime that's there too. And the reason why is because whenever there's, a drug dealer in the neighborhood or just some rogue male, there's a hit squad. There's a street team that will wipe him out. Like in some cases, I've seen some of these guys, they'll get out of jail, and before they even make it home to their mom's house, they're in a body bag, right? So what has happened is this particular president, him and his squad knocked him off, and the crime was virtually none in his district. Hence is why he became president, because of some of the crime that is going on in like the northern Filipino areas. Further south, you have a lot of wars. You have ISIS that's down there. Um, but let me not veer off too much. But what I want to say is that when it comes down to protecting their community, they willing to fight to the death behind that shit, including now. Like back then, when he was president, what took place was there was instances, where these, people died, like they were really no criminals. The laws there are, in my opinion, very harsh, because if you get caught with a gram of weed, you have a blunt of weed, that's 25 years to life. This is not only in the Philippines, it's in also like Singapore, Malaysia, it's the same way. If you're caught with an ounce, that's the death penalty. So now, you go to Manila when, there's a crime that's committed or someone who's known to be a drug dealer. He actually has given the green light to the civilians to actually kill these people. And then you walk up, you see this big crowd, and then you see this dead body with a cardboard sign, and it says rapist, or it'll say drug dealer, right? And Obama actually, during this time, Obama tried to get NATO to go against him, basically from submitting a crime against humanity. And he actually told Obama, look, this is my motherfucking country. I run this shit how I want to. So when I told Smooth that, he was like, man, why didn't you tell Obama? Not Obama, I said, why didn't you tell RBR this shit, right? About this whole, situation with Obama. I was like, he knows I was getting to that point. But what he did was he muted me and cut me off. That's a lie. No, that's the truth, man. Another thing I noticed about the Philippines is that the women there, some of those women, they are, you know, attractive, they're well to do, and they can't get a man, and it's because they have a child. Some of these women are highly educated, but they're single mothers, some of them just only have one child, but the Filipino men don't deal with them. I can't tell you how many times I got this one friend out there who, she would always say, like, they don't want me, they don't want to be with me, they don't want me. And I'm telling them, like, you're a very attractive woman, you should be able to find any guy out there. And she's like, it's because I have the kid. Like, they know that I have this child. Like, word around is that I have a son. And because I have a son, they don't want to deal with me. So, that's just kind of sad, but, it just goes, it just adds on. It just goes with our educated lame arguments when we talk about the women who are here and they have multiple children. And then that's a whole nother conversation as well. I mean, we're just talking about, like, really, the educated lames and how they feel, and how educated lames, they are proud to be educated lames, and they're putting their foot down. So, something else I wanted to add with that. Oh, yeah. Smooth actually indicated that, not only does this happen in the Philippines, that it actually happens in other cultures and other groups as well. So you have instances where you have, just say for instance, Somalians do it, other African cultures do it, where, they'll move you to another location. They'll move the woman to another location. And I was like, man, well, we don't do that in the black community. We get talked about, like, we get shamed for saying that we don't want to deal with a woman who has children. These are all, like I said, educated lame arguments. Do I feel that way to get with a woman who has kids? To a certain extent, yes. I mean, I've advocated this. I've talked to a lot of people about this. A lot of people have come back, and there's so many ways we can go about this. Where we talk about, the single mother situations. But I mean, educated lambs, that's all they really wanted. They wanted a woman who they could take and build with and create a legacy. They did not want to create a legacy with Pookie and Ray Ray's children. That's just what it really boils down to. Um, it's strange because the person who I'm having these discussions with doesn't really fall into that category. This person made it through, no kids, educated, and it's like how me and Sarge, like with that whole situation about the comment about single women with no kids, they out here advocating for women with children. So basically, these women with kids, they're like, I should be able to find me a man. I want him. I want the man right there with no kids. And, these childless women will allow them to just hop over everybody, to get them. And it should be a protection when it comes down to educated brothers. It should be like, no, no, no. You can't have him. I should be able to have first pick. And I mean, that's just how I really look at the game when it comes down to it. So, I mean, this one particular person, I get it. They are speaking, in high regards to the educated lames. But I just don't think that they understand. Like, I mean, because educated lame and MGTOW could definitely be two different things. I don't think that a lot of MGTOWs are educated. You know, a lot of these guys have already been married and they had terrible divorces, and they're like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not gonna deal with these women anymore. I'll pay off my child support. I'll get pussy whenever I can. Fuck it. I'll just jack off and do whatever. You know, this is not an educated lame's argument. Some of it is, most of it's not. Educated lames, they don't run away from women. Most educated lames just bring up the argument and ask the question why. So, another fucking phone call. Yeah. Another thing I wanted to bring up too, I was just thinking about, there's so many avenues that I can go about this, but I do know a lot of brothers who are educated, and some of them have white women and Asian women, shit like that. And I noticed one thing that they all have in common. By the time they got out of school, they went back and, they realized that nothing was really available. Or even when they went to college, they were around other races of women, and they just kind of like got out of that whole thinking process of getting with a black woman, getting with a sister. And not only that, they felt like this woman doesn't respect me, you know, which is kind of strange. And I dissect a lot of this shit. I don't agree with it to a certain extent, because there's no assertiveness in a lot of these guys. It just feels like they gave up. Um, and we have that whole argument about, well, these men, they can't get the pussy, and they probably won't be able to have a decent marriage and pass the legacy down because black men aren't educated as a whole. We have more Ray Ray and Pookies, and because of that, the black women, they're working for Arab men, they're working for white men, they're working for Asian men. We don't provide jobs for them to take and work where we as a group have the respect. So, those arguments have been presented. I don't think that they have really been thought out too much, but it's definitely solution based, and it's like, damn, man. I just think that brothers just think it's a lot of hard work. I mean, I'm talking to educated brothers here. They think that it's too much work. So, man, be on the lookout for that video, man. Too much work. It's too much work. So, yeah. I just wanted to kind of like point that out. There'll probably be a part 3 to this, and I'll probably do the part 3. I'm just going to rest tomorrow, but I'll probably do the part 3 on Monday or something. And, just kind of like lay it out, because I've already talked about a lot of this stuff. I try to compile it all into one, but every educated lane video I've done, I've always added a contrast, and I want to speak directly to them. Where I never really bring up Ray Ray and Pookie. I only bring up Ray Ray and Pookie as a contrast, just to let people know that you know there is a difference between the two. And I can't call out people by name. I also wanted to bring up the whole Carlton and Steve Urkel, Stephon Arkell thing, where really the Steve Urkel, the Steve Urkel, Stephon Arkell argument just talks about confidence. It talks about the educated brother who, he's more assertive now. He's more socially aware, and he has more confidence. So, it's one person, but it's two different personalities that's within one person. And you can see that the same person has the same body structure. Just one is a little, he leans back, maybe he leans over. He has nerdy mannerisms about himself. He has a higher pitched voice. And then you got, Suave, right? So that's basically what that is. The whole Carlton concept is basically the father has left the community. He knows about the community. He left and he decided to provide for him and his family. He has a son. His son grows up in a predominantly white neighborhood. And, there's a contrast to him, which if you watch The Fresh Prince, the contrast would be Will Smith, who comes along and he's able to get women. He's able to, socially interact with Carlton's group, and Carlton doesn't like that. And that's the same way a lot of these educated brothers feel when a lot of these guys come into their neighborhood, the rappers or whoever, they come into their neighborhood and they go to their school. Now they go to a new school. They come from the ghetto. They come from a public school, and all of a sudden they go to the private or the charter school around all these educated brothers. But yet this new guy who's from the hood is getting all of the women. So I mean, that's where the Carlton comes from. The Carltons are the ones that I never blame on not wanting to come back to the community to build anything or even speak up for the black community inside of the trenches, because they're not from there. So I support them when they do speak outside of the community. This is where all this comes from. But they have some people, these are not real people, these are not real people, but this is the way where we are able to identify with ourselves. There's that study of phonology where they talk about different people's heads and how their heads are formed, and how their facial structure is, and you can kind of identify what type of person that is just based off of the way they look in their head, the way their head is shaped, right? I think the Roots did an album about that. So I mean, even with me, like, I used to be judgmental when it came down to a lot of people and the way their heads were formed. Like, oh man, that dude looks like he gets in trouble. Like, I mean, he just looks like trouble. His head is shaped to the point where, I wouldn't trust him. And most of the time I was right about that. So how can we have those components and we can't have a discussion about Ray Ray and Pookie, educated names, and, Carlton and Steve Urkel? Like, they are, different ways that we view people. I mean, I even look at it when it comes down to astrology. How could you base a sign on someone's personality, right? But we can do this when it comes down to astrology, but we can't do this when it comes down to us identifying who the fuck Ray Ray and Pookie is. It makes no sense. Or even with an educated lame, which, like I said before, was created by an educated lame. So, whew, nigga got shit to do. I'm out, y'all. Be cool.